What's up guys, it's MTGMat for you, and today we're going to be looking at the spoilers from January 9th, so all the spoilers for Kaldheim for yesterday. So let's jump right into it. I have my tier list here again. As a reminder, I'm going to evaluate the cards and give my opinion and then, put them in one of these categories to see if I think they're viable or not for standard constructed. So that's the plan, so we just go through those new cards one by one. And we'll start with Reckless Crew. It's 3 in the red for a sorcery, which says create X 2/1 Red Dwarf Berserker creature tokens, where X is the number of vehicles you control plus the number of equipment you control. For each of those tokens, you may attach an equipment you control to it. Now, what do I think about this card? I think that this card is going to be quite unplayable. Yes, there is a Berserker tribal theme, there's a Dwarf tribal theme, and Dwarves seem to have this connection with vehicles and equipment, which is cool and everything. But I imagine that Dwarf or equipment tribal, so to say, is going to be tier 3 at the very best. And even in that kind of deck, I don't think this is playable because if you play equipments, and disclaimer, we haven't seen all of the set yet, so maybe there is going to be more like really good equipment. If there's good equipment down the road, still you just want to pick the best equipment for your deck, and you will try to, want to make your deck pretty consistent, which is the reason why I think that most of the time you have at most like, let's say 2 equipments on the battlefield, maximum 2 most of the time, and then maybe vehicles if they are viable, which we still have yet to see. And let's say in that scenario, like, let's say a likely scenario in those decks is you have 2 equipments on the board and 1 vehicle, then for 4 mana you get 3 2/1 Berserkers, to which you can equip or attach that equipment, which I think is just really it's bad value for such an effect with such a high requirement and such a mana cost, and it's not even instant speed. So because of that, I am going to put this actually into 0 play and constructed. It might see rare play in janked lower tier decks if I'm very optimistic, but my honest evaluation is that this is rather like a 0 play, but I'll put it into the tier 4 category. Right, so next I've got Rally the Ranks, 2 mana enchantment white. As Rally the Ranks enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Creatures you control of the chosen type get +1/+1. Now, just in general, this is a very nice Anthem effect. We have Glorious Anthem stand now, which gives all your creatures +1/+1, regardless of the creature type. However, I think this is strictly better because if you're playing a creature-heavy deck in white that, wants to go wide and wants to use such an effect, you might as well go tribal. I think that's not really that big of a requirement. And this way, this costs 1 mana less than Glorious Anthem, which is, just straight up better. However, I have to say that if you're playing some kind of tribal decks, from the past, we are more or less used to the fact that Lord effects on creatures cost 2 mana. So for example, we have the Night Lord from from Throne of Eldraine in Boros colors, where you get a 2/2 and which gives all your knights +1/+1, or your other knights. So this has the same effect except you don't get a creature, which I think is strictly worse, because in those creature decks where you want to go wide, you really need every gas and power you can get. But still, at 2 mana, to arguably an enchantment is harder to remove than a creature, so that could be an upside. And yeah, I think this card could see play. I don't think it's going to see too much play. So if I compare this with the Dwarf Berserker card, I think this is definitely more viable, so maybe this goes into like tier 3 decks. I can see it being played there. It also might be just rare play, but I'll be optimistic here and put it in tier 3. I've noticed about myself that I tend to be too optimistic about the performance of cards, because I want cards that I succeed, which I think cool, but then when the reality of the meta hits, it's often not the case. So, you know, I'll put this in tier 3, but actually realistically I would have to all these cards like this. You know, this 0 play and this, you know, maybe rare play or tier 3 play. Alright. Next up, we've got Search for Glory. Let me actually zoom in a bit, then you can see better. Search for Glory. 3 mana for a snow sorcery. Search your library for a snow card, legendary card, or saga. Reveal it, put that card into your hand, and shuffle your library. You gain 1 life for each snow mana spent casting or to cast a spell. This is an interesting tutor because it tutors actually for a lot. So snow cards can be a lot, right? I think snow cards can be the lands itself. Sagas can be a lot. You know, if you can for example tutor up an Elf of Conqueror's Death if you need to. Remember, we still got sagas left over from Pharaohs Beyond Death in Standard. But what makes this card really flexible is the fact that you can tutor for just a legendary card. It can be a creature, it can be a planeswalker, it can be a legendary enchantment, a legendary artifact, which is, you know, a lot you can tutor, you know. And sure, it costs 3 mana, and we also have Grim Tutor in the meta right now, which lets you search up any card for, I think, the cost of 3 life. But Grim Tutor is in black, so, and this is easier to cast because Grim Tutor has 2 black mana pips in it. This has only 1 white mana pip. Plus there is small upside that it can also gain your maximum 3 life, which is at least nice because you're sacrificing a lot of tempo for a turn at sorcery speed, so at least you gain some life because I would, you know, just argue that you want to play this in a control deck, right? So I could see this being rarely played, maybe like as a 2-off in more control type of decks, which really want to tutor up a specific card for a win condition. It could be as simple as tutoring up your Eugene, you know, to close out the game, or any other Planeswalker card. So I would say this could see rare play. I think the tutor is very flexible, you gain some life. So I think this is quite nice, actually. Next up, we got Spirit Blade, 2 mana, enchantment aura with enchant creature, and the enchant creature gets +2/+2. So just, you know, cool vanilla stats for 2 mana. And then you can pay 1 in a white and exile Spirit Blade from your graveyard to return target aura or equipment card from your graveyard to your hand. So, a value aura, so to say. Let's take a look at the first half first. And that is, creature gets +2/+2 for 2 mana, which is, you know, it's fine. It's not like amazing, the creature doesn't get any keyword or something, but it's okay. And we've already seen some hints, you know, with enchantment aura synergies. With enchantment aura synergies in the Kaldheim expansion. And it's a very cheap aura, so you know, if you play a deck that wants to be aggressive and relies on synergies with enchanted creatures or equipped creatures, like in a deck where you run what's the new white god called? The Halvar god of battle, I think, right? Which gives enchanted creatures double strike. I could see this being played in that kind of decks because it's very cheap, and then later down the road it basically draws your whole card from your graveyard, which for 2 mana, which is very nice. You know, you really want to have more resources and value in those kinds of decks. So I think this has some nice value, and it really depends if this is playable based on the other cards to follow, but I could see this being rarely played, even if like an equipment or a deck becomes tier 3. This could be like a tier 3 card, so I wouldn't, put it into like the tier 3, tier 4 category. Most realistically, probably tier 4, but as I said, I really want cards to succeed, so could even be tier 3, just as a disclaimer there. Next we got Grimdragger. Snow creature, Zombie Berserker, 3 mana, 3/2. And you can pay 1 in the snow to give it +1/+0 and menace until end of turn. This might be a cool card for draft. For constructed, it's going to see zero play. It's just too bad. Next we got God's Hall Guardian. 6 mana, 3/6 cat with vigilance and foretell for 3 and a white. Just another foretell creature. I don't even know if this is even playable in draft, but it's definitely zero play in constructed. No doubt about that. Next up is an interesting one. It's Esperas Chariot. 3 green for legendary artifact vehicle, and with 4/4 in stats. And when Esperas Chariot enters the battlefield, create 2/2 green cat creature tokens. So you pay 4 mana, you get this vehicle on the board, and 4/4 in power, right? And whenever Esperas Chariot attacks, create a token that's a copy of target token you control. So the spec basically says, it actually doesn't say populate as a keyword, because if I remember correctly, populate as a keyword states that you create a copy of a creature token you control. While this saying is a copy of target token. So this is not restricted to creature tokens, which is very interesting. So what comes to my mind, for example, is we have this blue Jace Planeswalker in stand right now from Zendikar Rising, which if you kick it can create a token copy of itself, right? And which is not legendary. And so if you have Esperas Chariot, you could, for example, copy that Jace token, which is pretty cool. You can also copy, treasure tokens. You can copy food tokens. Obviously, you can copy creature tokens. Any kind of artifact token. I don't know if there's anything noteworthy right now. But okay, let's look at the actual application standard here, right? So first off, you pay 4 mana, you get 4/4 in stats, plus this vehicle, right? So you pay the 4 mana and you had an immediate effect on the board in that turn, with the later upside of, getting more creature tokens or other kinds of tokens, okay? So that's pretty cool, actually. That's pretty cool. Then, the thing about this card is it's crew 4, which is a lot, because sure, the card provides you already with 4 power to crew 4 with those 2/2 cat tokens. But if one of them gets killed, you need other creatures to crew for you. And because of crew 4, I think crew 4 is a big requirement. It might be hard to actually get this out there in the field to have it attack. And but okay, let's assume you attack with this and you create a copy of target creature token. Is that right? Realistically, what kind of creature tokens are in the meta right now? We have the 1/1 human tokens from Lost Dark Beast. We have like 1/1 tokens from what's it called? Annex, right? From the Demigod Annex. You would have these cat tokens you could copy. You might have tokens from Aldegard, but even that's a stretch. So the thing I have about this card, I think the effect is very interesting, but I just don't see how this really would, realistically play out in standard, because there aren't a lot of tokens sitting around, and if there are, it's not like they're huge creature tokens, so the payoff isn't that big. So to evaluate this card, we would really have to see the rest of the set to see if the vehicle synergies are strong enough to make this playable. But right right now, I would say that this at most sees rare play. At most rare play or zero play in constructed. So I leave it in the tier 4 category. Next up we got Vega the Watcher. 1 white and a blue for a 2/2 legendary creature bird spirit with flying, which says whenever you cast a spell from anywhere other than your hand, draw a card. So, this is actually a huge effect. What does it mean? You cast your Croxa from the graveyard, right? You draw a card. You cast your Bonecrusher Giant from exile, you draw a card. You cast a card from the top of your library, you draw a card. Or you cast, or what's very obvious with this set, you cast a card from Foretell, you draw a card. So, this card actually can be a real value engine. I don't see this card being played in adventure decks just because of the color combination. I think the meta shows that the really good adventure cards are in green and red, and not necessarily in white and blue. That being said, I could see this card being played as a one-off, mostly two-off in maybe like a Foretell Azorius control deck, which might become a thing. I don't know, but there are some, the shell is forming for such a deck with the cards we're seeing being revealed to us. The thing about this card is that pretty much dies to anything really. It dies to any removal spell, obviously, but it also dies to Storm from Bonecrusher Giant. It also dies to just a simple shock. So, a lot of easy ways to kill this card. And while I think the effect is pretty powerful and could actually fit, in decks that are going to come, because it's not unusual these days standard to cast something outside from your hand. I just think that this is too easy to kill, right? If it was like a 3-mana 1/3, I think the story would be different. But because of that, I would put this in tier 4. I think it's definitely going to see some rare play. But since it's just so vulnerable, I think it's not going to see a lot of play. Alright, next up we got Undersea Invader. 4 and a double blue for a giant rogue. I didn't know that giants could be rogues, given their size, and you want to be all sneaky and stuff, but this guy is underwater, so that helps. It has flash, it's a 5/6, and enters the battlefield tapped. Yeah. Obviously zero plane constructed, nothing much to evaluate there. Oh, next up we got a Mythic yesterday, that's right, and I think this one is, it's pretty juicy, and I like this kind of cards, and let's just read through this card. It's Quakebringer, 5 mana, 3 and a double red for Giant Berserker, so pretty cool tribal combination. Your opponents can't gain life, that's always nice. It's a 5/4 by the way, and it says at the beginning of your upkeep, Quakebringer deals 2 damage to each opponent. This ability triggers only if Quakebringer is on the battlefield, or if Quakebringer is in your graveyard and you control a giant. And you can foretell it for 2 and a double red. So you could play this as early as turn 4. Yeah, this card. So first off, this is one of these cards that just... I read this and I want to play this, I want to try this out. Like, the idea I have is, for example, I want to put this in some kind of big red control deck with, like Eugenes and Fire Emancipations, and just have this like an eventual win condition, like a Chandra, what's called, like a Chandra emblem of the old 6-mana Chandra Planeswalker. And, it's not legendary, so it's very reasonable to say you can have 4 of these in your deck. But what's really interesting is, I think this fits really nicely in some Rakdos self-mill deck. We've already seen this archetype in the current meta, or in the the meta since Zendikar Rising, let's say. And this fits right into there, because you want to play your Bonecrusher Giant, which is a giant. You want to play your Croxa, which is a giant. You want to mill yourself. Milling yourself makes it so that this goes into your graveyard, and then if you have like a Bonecrusher Giant on the board, or a Croxa, on your upkeep, you deal 2 damage to your opponent, or 4 damage if you have 2 of these in the graveyard. Plus the effect your opponents can gain life, if this is actually on the battlefield, is also really, really nice. So I like this card. The Foretell is, you know, just a nice added upside. I don't think it's too relevant for this card because I said you might just want to mill this and play cheaper giants, or, you know, just not bother about the Foretell, because it's not like one of these cards which you need to get out fast. It's fine if it comes out later, just to constantly, you know, pressure your opponent. What also comes to my mind, this is just one more effect which, you know, continuously drains your opponent. And if you watch my videos from the past, I once built like an Iron Control deck with Close of God of Destiny, which drains your opponent for 2 damage every turn, which is actually a lot, and this can just help do that also. But this is just more of a jank idea, just for like actual good standards, so to say. Yeah, I think this card is viable. I don't think it's in any way broken or busted, or, you know, but it just fits nicely in, for example, Rector Self-Mill. In some kind of control decks, this would fit well. And I think it's just a very good solid card with a cool effect. 5 mana 5/4 is also nice in stats. Also, keep in mind, we have the 4 mana Giant Calamity Bearer, which doubles the damage of all giant sources, and this is a giant source, so this would then deal 4 damage on each upkeep, which, you know, adds up very, very fast and is a lot. So, yeah, because of that, I think this card has some potential. If you look at tier list, where would I put this? I mean, it's definitely not below tier 3, that's for sure. I would put this somewhere between tier 3 and tier 2. It might be a tier 2 card. It might also just be a tier 3 card because the effect is very specific and doesn't fit in every deck. I think, let's just ask the question here. Do I think this would be viable in like a mono-red aggro deck? Not necessarily, because this is like a slow effect and you want to have fast effects in red deck, right? So, because of that, I don't think it's tier 1. I don't think you're gonna see it in tier 1 decks, but it might be a tier 2 card. Like, as I said, Rakdos Self-Mill was pretty good. So, I would say like between tier 3 and tier 2. Realistically, I would say tier 3. I could be generous to put this tier 2, but let's say tier 3. But I really, really like this card. I think it's pretty cool. Next up, we got a Replicating Ring. 3 mana, Snow Artifact. Tap at 1 mana of any color. So it's just the usual 3 mana rock. And it says, at the beginning of your upkeep, put a night counter on Replicating Ring. Then if it has 8 or more night counters on it, remove all of them and create 8 colorless Snow Artifact tokens named Replicated Ring with at 1 mana of any color. Note, it doesn't say something like, if it has 8 counters, sacrifice Replicating Ring and create those tokens. No, you still get to keep your Replicating Ring, which then, you know, keeps just getting counters and counters. Realistically, I think this card is pretty janky because we don't have Proliferate in standard. With Proliferate, this might be pretty cool. But realistically, I think this is going to be C0 playing constructed. The effect is super interesting, but let's say you play this on turn 3. 8 turns is a lot, like a lot. And, you know, where would you want to put this? You would put this card into like a control deck, right? Well, if you survived, if you play this on turn 3 and then you survive 8 more turns, this tells me that you have already won the game. So I don't know why would you want 8 more mana rocks then? Like, what's the point? After 11 turns, let's say even you miss some land drops, but you might have like 8-9 mana at that point, or maybe you've even rammed. So I just don't see any application of this card. The effect is certainly very interesting. Maybe someday we'll get Proliferate back in standard, while this is also still in standard. Then this might be something to think about, but at the current state, I think it's going to see 0 play in constructed. Next up we got Broken Wings. It's 2 and a green for an instant to destroy target artifact, enchantment, or creature with flying. Now, we actually have this card currently in standard, I think on Zendikar Rising. I don't know. I definitely know there is this kind of card in Zendikar Rising. I just know the name right now. And I have used this card actually when building a mono green deck. I've put 2 of these in there because artifacts, you can use this against Ambercleaves and Green Henges. Creatures with flying, Dimir Rogues has flying creatures. Mono white life gain occasionally has flying creatures. So in the current meta, I think you can actually play this. This is in standard right now, and you know, it has some viability as long as you can say that there are certain artifacts or enchantments that are frequently being played at top tier, and there are certain creatures of flying which appear over and over. So I would say as long as you have 2 reliable targets for this card, so be it artifact enchantment, artifact creature with flying, or enchantment creature with flying, or yeah, enchantment creature with flying, then you can actually play this card. It's a bit expensive, but it's definitely fine. It's a nice sideboard card. So really nothing to say about it. It's like a T4. It's definitely playable, but just very circumstantial. And then the last card of the day is Spirit of the Aldegard. 3 and a green for a snow creature bear spirit. When Spirit of the Aldegard enters the battlefield, search your library for a snow land card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. So it tutors your land. And Spirit of the Aldegard gets +1/+0 for each other snow permanent you control. Each other, so it's lands plus snow creatures, right? Or snow artifacts and anything. Pretty cute bear here. I like it. This is probably cool for draft, for constructed zero play. So yeah, that's already the card review for today. Some cool cards, not necessarily playable cards, as I said, like Quakebringer might be a tier 2 card, has definitely some potential. It's just one of these cards you need to try out, and I'm very excited to try this out. But yeah, that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it in the video, and you know, stay tuned for more updates. I keep you guys updates on all the previews, and I see you guys tomorrow.